Well, good afternoon, friends, and thanks for taking part in the G1 Supercard media call. G1 Supercard airs live from sold-out Madison Square Garden in New York City this Saturday, April 6th at 7:30 Eastern through traditional pay-per-view providers and free for all Honor Club members. Honor Club content can be streamed via the ROH and Fight TV apps and at ROHHonorClub.com. The historic event will feature a Ring of Honor World Championship ladder match as Jay Lethal defends against Matt Taven and the villain Marty Scurll. New Japan Pro Wrestling Switchblade Jay White defends the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Kazuchika Okada. In total, 10 championships will be decided in addition to the Honor Rumble that will be featured on the pre-show starting at 6:30 Eastern. Today we have scheduled 20 minutes for each of our guests, both of whom have experience competing in the world's most famous arena, Bully Ray and PCO. Once I state your name and publication, I kindly ask you to keep it to one question per guest in order to keep things running smoothly and to give everyone a chance to participate. With that said, I'd like to introduce our first guest at G1 Supercard, who will face Lifeblood's Juice Robinson in a New York City street fight. Please welcome Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, Bully Ray.
You know who I am, guys? That was funny. You can all laugh now. All right. It's okay. Let's have a fun phone call, everybody.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. Let's start with our first question then, which I'm asking for Chris Featherstone from Pancakes and Power Slams, and of course, I have to do the requisite, like everyone. So, how are you today, Bully?
I'm great, thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, when you previously left WWE, your career as a singles wrestler became stronger than ever. Currently, we still see the Bully Ray character give the fans what an old-school heel should look like. Having this heel persona has significantly helped babyface career of Flip Gordon. How important is it still for the face-heel dynamic in the midst of a gray area fan base?
I think it's very important to have the heel-face dynamic in wrestling. It's one of the main foundations of the pro wrestling industry. It has worked from day one, and I think it can continue to work moving forward. I don't like my pro wrestling to be gray. I like my characters, my athletes, my performers, my wrestlers to have a clear-cut, definitive emotion and an emotional investment. I want to either love somebody or I want to hate somebody. And I don't believe that there is anybody in the wrestling business in the entire world who is better than being hated than me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And I got one more for another journalist who unfortunately couldn't make it, from Under the Mat Radio, and he asks, what makes the New York City fan base so unique compared to others?
New York City is the capital of the world, in my opinion. Obviously, Madison Square Garden is the arena of arenas. That's why they call it the Mecca. And the New York City fan base, when it comes to professional wrestling, has always been extremely loyal and passionate. When you talk about some of the greatest wrestling fans in the world, New York fans are right up there with Philadelphia fans and Chicago fans. You know that when you perform in front of a New York crowd, you better bring your A game, because they're not afraid to show you how they feel.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now we're going to go live to our press friends who we have on the line. So Sean Rossap from Fightful.com. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. You've competed at Madison Square Garden dozens of times. Am I right in that this is going to be your first singles match at Madison Square Garden?
To my knowledge, I do not believe I have ever competed in a singles match in Madison Square Garden, and this will definitively be the first time Bully Ray ever competes in Madison Square Garden.
So what does that mean to you, considering you've competed in that venue so many times? And if you do it next year, I don't know if you realize, across 4 different decades, if you all go back next year, what does that mean to you to be a fixture in such a historic venue, but still have the first?
I'll take the second part first. The next year I don't even think about, because who knows what's going to happen, next year. Hopefully Ring of Honor and Madison Square Garden and New Japan still continue to have a good relationship. Hopefully this event goes really, really well, and all parties want to do business again. As far as myself bringing Bully Ray to Madison Square Garden, it's a quote unquote bucket list thing that I only added to the bucket list recently once I saw that there would be an event at Madison Square Garden with all of the great Ring of Honor talent, with all of the great New Japan talent. I wasn't guaranteed a spot on the card. So I did, what I have to do character-wise, storytelling-wise, wrestling-wise, performing-wise, to make sure that I've earned myself a spot. So I'm proud of the fact that I was able to do that. And it is a big deal to me because I created the Bully Ray character. Nobody created it for me. I'm the one that moved the Bully Ray character forward. And I'm talking about when I originally invented it in TNA. This was my creation. And when you have your own creation in the wrestling business, and when you can bring your own creation to a show like the G1 Supercard, when you can bring your own creation to an arena like Madison Square Garden, it is a very good feeling and sense of accomplishment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Sean. Next is Bill Pritchard from WrestleZone. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Bully, how you doing today?
Hey, Bill, what's going on, brother?
Not much. So, as someone who reinvented themselves at a late stage in your career, can you explain how you avoid growing complacent at this point?
I have entirely too much fun in the professional wrestling business to grow complacent. There are so many stories left to tell, and I love coming up with these new stories. And actually, I love coming up with these new stories that have been told maybe 100 times over, but I get to tell them in a unique, different way. Especially in pro wrestling these days, where heels are so afraid to get heat. I'm a heel I basically have no fear in the wrestling business, so I can do things that nobody else is doing right now. So that alone allows me to never become complacent, to continue to have fun. And I think one of the most fun things for me is that Ring of Honor, for me, is basically full circle of my career. Ring of Honor is ECW. I mean, Ring of Honor was created because ECW went out of business. The work ethic, the passion, the drive in Ring of Honor is something that I can understand and relate to, because that's what we did in ECW. So I feel like my career has, come full circle, and I am in a company that I belong in. And, a lot of people at first were like, oh, no, this is not going to work out. And they gave a variety of reasons why it wouldn't work out. But for those exact reasons is why it has worked out. Because Ring of Honor doesn't have a guy like me. And in any wrestling company, you need a variety. You can't just have wrestling match after wrestling match after wrestling match. You need some storytelling. After all, this is the storytelling business. And I would never want to take away from what Ring of Honor is doing, because those guys do what they do entirely too damn well. I just want to be able to add another aspect to Ring of Honor that other guys might not be as qualified to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Next is Gil Kuda from turnbuckle topics. Go ahead, Gil.
Hey, Bully, thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, man.
So I just got to ask, I mean, since you had a lot of say in Bully Ray, you started the character yourself, and I know that Ring of Honor is normally encouraging of their talent to, I don't know about directly help with the booking process or so, but I just want to know where the idea for an open challenge street fight came from.
It came from me.
All right. You just figured I'll jump in with somebody and we'll pull some crazy spots and wow everybody.
So let me ask you this: are you intrigued by the open challenge at all?
I'm always intrigued by an open challenge. I have to say, I mean, I'm thrilled you're facing somebody like a Juice Robinson who's proved himself a million times over, especially recently. But I just love the concept of a surprise, of just you don't know who's walking out.
And there you go. You know, Juice has stepped up and he's accepted, and this is a huge moment for Juice. You know, it would be a huge moment for anybody. Hell, if Hulk Hogan issued an open challenge in Madison Square Garden, I would be the first one to jump up and say, yes, I'll answer the challenge, because there's an opportunity right there that I want to take. You know, when you look at the entire card, what is the one constant in every match? You're going to get a great wrestling match, a great wrestling match, a great wrestling match. You don't know what you're getting in my match. You don't know what's planned. Hell, I don't even know what's planned half the time. I'm just going out there and winging it, just like Terry Funk did, 30 and 40 years ago. And in no way am I comparing myself to the greatness of Terry Funk, but he's one of my idols, and that's basically the way I handle myself when I'm performing. Anything can happen at any given time, and most of the time, it does.
All right, Bully, thanks.
You got it, man.
Thanks, Gil. Next, James Walsh from Wrestling Epicenter. Go ahead, James.
Hey, Bully, it's a pleasure to talk to you. How you doing today?
James, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. So my question was for you, was actually going to mention Terry Funk, but since you already said it, I won't mention his name. I'm just going to ask you, as the guy who's been there, who's done that, who's been in Madison Square Garden, we've interviewed guys like Jeff Cobb, who said he's going to have tears coming down his eyes at the idea of even wrestling in Madison Square Garden. Have you given any advice to some of the younger guys who are getting their first taste of the Mecca?
Some of the guys that have asked me about it and some of the other interviews I have done, I've given really the same two pieces of advice. Number one is when you go through that curtain, take a moment to smell the roses. Take it all in. Stand there, look out into the crowd, realize that you are performing in Madison Square Garden, and realize that you belong there. And give yourself a mental pat on the back. Because if you're on that card and you're standing in that arena, you've earned it. So take time to give yourself some credit for your accomplishments. I think in the wrestling business, things get a little too negative at times, and we don't take the time to really, maybe tell one another how, proud we are of each other or what kind of a great job each other has done. But we can take the time to appreciate our own moment. So for everybody who hasn't performed there before, from Okada and Tanahashi to the cheeseburgers of the world, take time to smell the roses. The second thing I've told them is be prepared for an uncontrollable shot of adrenaline that will overcome you when you walk out there. And that adrenaline rush is so intense that you actually black out for a second. And it's very easy for that adrenaline to take over your mind so much that you don't even remember what happens. And it's a pretty crappy feeling to not be able to remember what happened, especially if you're, performing in Madison Square Garden. So it's like, go out there, take a deep breath, smell the roses, get your composure, pat yourself on the back, go to the ring, and try to steal the show. And every single match should put a gun to every other match's head and say, go try to follow that.
Beautiful. I can't wait for Saturday. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, James. Next, Jeff Martin from bodyslam.net. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Billy. Thanks so much for your time. So, obviously, going to Juice Robinson, and he's your opponent, and you know who it is. Is there anyone in the back of your mind that you wish kind of did answer that open challenge, or is Juice Robinson going to be a suitable opponent for you?
Who would you have liked to see answer the open challenge?
Like I said, I was up for a surprise, but I think Juice Robinson to me is he's hot right now, and I think that would be a great matchup between you both.
There you go. I mean, Juice took the bull by the horns. He stepped up. He's going to get an ass kicking. I mean, and every single one of you know that. You know that on shows like these, I mean, it's in New York and it's in Madison Square Garden. And no matter what, I'm going to make an impression. And I'm going to probably make an impression on his chest and on his face. And he's going to get his ass handed to him. But, hey, man, kudos to him for having the balls to step up. And I will leave you with this. And this is really open-ended. Just because Juice answered the open challenge doesn't mean that other guys couldn't answer the open challenge. Who knows? I didn't say it was an open challenge singles match. Who the hell knows if anybody else decides to tell the music guy to hit my music? I can tell you this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. It's going to be hard-hitting, and it's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it, man.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Jim Varsalone, Miami Herald. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Bully. Did you ever think you'd see the day a wrestling promotion not named WWE would be at Madison Square Garden? And what do you think of the state of pro wrestling today?
No, Jim. This was even a shock to me, and I don't shock easily at all with pro wrestling because I've seen so much stuff happen, and even the most shockings of things I kind of just brush off like, yeah, man, hey, it's pro wrestling. Anything can happen. But going into this, I mean, it's sacred ground. I don't mean to sound cliche. I mean, this is Vince McMahon's grandfather's building. This is Vince McMahon's father's building. This is Vince McMahon's building. Nobody runs Madison Square Garden. And I think that just the planets lined up. There was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Kudos to Ring of Honor for having the guts to pick up the phone and saying, hey, we'd like to run a show in your building. We'd like to do business with you. And kudos to Madison Square Garden for taking the call and saying yes, because I believe just the fact that there's a different wrestling promotion in the Garden on that night is historical. I mean, it really could have been any wrestling company, and it would have been historical. I'm happy that it's Ring of Honor in New Japan, and I'm happy that I'm going to be a part of it. So, yeah, Jim, I mean, I think everybody was shocked. You know, I think Vince McMahon was shocked. I don't think Vince ever saw this coming. So, I mean, that answers part one of your question. And part two of your question, the state of the wrestling industry. I gauge wrestling by fans' interest. And the fans right now are extremely interested in all companies. I mean, let's face it. WWE is going to do the business that they do and that they will always do. WrestleMania, 80,000 people, sold out. Ring of Honor is such a unique company with a unique fan base who has, for 17 years, has been giving their fans what they want to see. Obviously, AEW on the horizon. You got to give Cody and the Bucks credit. They were able to tap into a demographic of wrestling fan that probably thought that they were forgotten about. And look at the business that they're doing. Look at all the independent shows that are running WrestleMania weekend. And I don't really think it's that big of a deal that it's WrestleMania weekend and these shows are running. Good for them. You always go where the fans are going to be. I mean, I look at it as like, if you want, I know this is going to sound a little stupid, but if you ever watch the show Deadliest Catch, it's all about catching crabs. Well, if one boat is catching 100 crabs an hour and the other boat is catching 0 crabs an hour, The boat that's not catching any crabs is probably going to go to where the boat is catching a lot of crabs and then drop their traps and catch crabs also. And that's what this is. You know, WrestleMania comes to town and everybody knows that that's where the fans will be. Ring of Honor New Japan's a different story. They're not running an indie show. They're running Madison Square Garden, and they sold it out in like record-breaking time. The WWE hasn't sold out the Garden in a long, long time. So with Ring of Honor and New Japan, I don't think it's a question of them scooping up, you know, excess WrestleMania fans. I think they're catering to their fan base and are going to give their fan base the show that they want.
Thank you, Bully. Great Deadliest Catch reference, too. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, thanks, Jim. All right, next, Mike Johnson, PW Insider. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Bully, how are you?
Who's this? Who? Mike who?
Yeah, you know. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Mike?
Good. You brought up the ECW Ring of Honor comparison earlier, so I'm curious. As someone who was in that ECW locker room leading into Barely Legal, the first pay-per-view, and seeing all the carnage and the fighting and the injuries and everything that happened in that time period with ECW, compare the energy and the chaos there to what the locker room is like for Ring of Honor over the last couple of weeks, knowing that MSG is on the horizon, and compare the crop of talents who are there in Ring of Honor to the guys and the women who were in the ECW locker room in the late 90s. Is the energy similar? Is Ring of Honor maybe a little bit more nuanced because it's a more corporate entity compared to ECW? How do you compare the two?
I believe the energy level is the same. Obviously, the guys and the gals over the years have changed a lot with the way they conduct themselves in a locker room or as professionals or as personally. So I think it's more controlled passion, controlled energy. I think everybody is chomping at the bit to go out there and, do the best they can. In ECW, and you were there probably in the front row, that locker room, we were like caged animals that just couldn't wait to get out and show the world who we were. Everybody knows who Ring of Honor and New Japan is. Now it's just time to go into the Garden and steal the weekend. With ECW being on pay-per-view, it was such a big deal because these rebels, these rogues, these guys and gals that were kicked to the curb were finally able, as Paul said, to get to the dance. And pay-per-view for ECW was the dance. And Madison Square Garden for the Ring of Honor locker room and in the New Japan locker room is the dance. Yeah, you may have performed in front of 50,000 people at the Tokyo Dome, but it's still not Madison Square Garden. As they say, the Garden will always be the Garden. The Ring of Honor guys, the New Japan guys, they're going to be out to, have a great show. And everybody's going to want to steal the show. In ECW, we were out to prove a point. And we did prove a point. And we changed the wrestling business forever. And I've said it before, and you've heard this, Mike. ECW was the Napster of the pro wrestling business. Napster went out of business, but changed the way we listen to music forever. ECW went out of business, but changed the way wrestling moved forward forever.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Hello.
Did we lose Mark?
Hello. I guess we lost Mark. If you guys got questions, go ahead and ask them.
Hey, Bully,
Hello.
This is Nick from Wrestling Inc. How are you doing?
Hey, Nick, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. I was going to follow up on all the nice things you said about Juice. How do you feel about the new crop of Ring of Honor talent that's come in and filled the void of a lot of the talent that left at the end of 2018?
I am going to reserve judgment until they can get a good amount of time underneath their belts, and see if they can get themselves over. As individuals, I think it's a huge opportunity. When any talent gets an opportunity to come into a wrestling company like a Ring of Honor or a WWE, anyway, NXT, Impact, you name it, there's always that feeling out period. There's always that proving, time to prove yourself. So let's see how these new talents get over. Let's see how the fans take to them. So if you ask me this question in a year from now and you say, how are these guys doing? I can probably give you a better answer. I can tell you this, as far as the younger guy, the newer guys, like Bandito, night one was super over. PCO, who you guys are going to be talking to, super over. I think those are two personalities that the Ring of Honor fan base is taking to immediately.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much.
You got it, man. Who else?
Okay, I think maybe my phone went bad. Anyway, we're good. Was that Mike or was that Nick? Sorry about that.
That was Nick.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, next we got Stu Byrick, and thanks for everyone for stepping up in that little situation. Go ahead, Stu. This is going to be our final question. Go ahead, Stu.
Bully Ray, good to talk to you.
Thanks,
I have
Stu.
a quick question. Besides the wrestling, of course, you are co-host of SiriusXM Busted Open. I wanted to find out what you have learned about wrestling fans through your work with Dave LaGreca that maybe you didn't realize before.
No, I think Daniel Bryant said it best. They're fickle. Fickle, I tell you, fickle. I'm really not surprised by anything. Recently I've seen things that really have me scratching my head, like such a huge majority of this fan base with this Ronda Rousey hate and stuff like that. You might not like Ronda Rousey, the person, I get it, but man, the girl has busted her ass since she's got in here. I mean, we had Natty Neidhart on the show the other day, and Natty's basically telling everybody that Ronda has paid her dues. She's done it the right way. I think she's earned the respect of the locker room. But yet you have a lot of people that just don't like her. So I think I don't so much. I guess there's a little bit of learning in fans they might be even more passionate today than ever. And I'm just going to say they might be, because I believe fans know what they like and they know what they want. And I think that if they don't get it, they're more liable to complain about it because they now have a voice through social media. 20 years ago, if fans didn't like something, well, you could show up to the arena and you can boo somebody, and that's really the only way you could voice it. Or you could write a letter to the wrestling magazine or to the local federation, but that normally fell on deaf ears. With social media now, they can voice their opinion about what they like and what they don't like, and sometimes I'm shocked by what they don't like. And I think that sometimes fans put wrestling under too big of a microscope, and they don't allow themselves to sit back and be entertained. I do believe that some fans have become too smart for their own good. If I go see a magician perform, I really don't want to know how he made Tommy Dreamer the elephant disappear. You always got to get in the obligatory Dreamer joke, right, guys?
Absolutely.
My advice to fans would just be, enjoy the ride more, man. It's pro wrestling. It's supposed to be fun. We don't have to destroy it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with analyzing it and discussing it, which we do on Busted Open, and I try to do with fans. I really try to make, on Busted Open, I try to explain things to make things more palatable for fans, and they can understand what creative, was thinking when they put something together. And then sometimes I go on the show and I say, man, this clearly did not make sense to me. Hopefully I answered your question as far as what I've learned from being on Busted Open.
You did. My sentiments exactly. Thank you, Bully.
You got it.
All right. Thank you. And thanks, Bully. That's all the time we have for him. And
Did everybody get to? Hold on, Mark. Did everybody get to ask their question? Yes or no?
I believe that's a yes. Yeah, we
good.
got through everyone. And I think everyone would agree with me. And personally, thank you very much for 30 minutes under your learning tree. It was fantastic.
No problem, Mark. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being on the line. Have fun, whether you're coming to the show or watching the show. And take care, and I'll see you down the road.
All right, thank you. So next up, we have the reigning Ring of Honor World Tag Team and World Six-Man Tag Team Champion. He has an opportunity to also leave Madison Square Garden with the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title. He will team with Villain Enterprises partner Brody King in a four-way tag match against the Briscoes, GOD, and Evil and Sonata. Please welcome PCO.
Hi, Mark. How are everybody?
Hi. Good to talk to you. Welcome. Let's get in with the questions. First one, again, comes from outside, from Chris Featherstone from Pancakes and Power Slam. So the question is, as a three-time WWE Tag Team Champion, you are very aware of the pressure that comes with holding that title now in Ring of Honor. How was the feeling of not only main eventing the 17th anniversary show, but also defeating the Briscoes to capture the tag titles from a major promotion after 25 years?
Well, the pressure is always the same. I always wanted to, as a performer, I think if you don't want to fill the show, I don't think you belong in this business. So you always want to, be the best that you can be, and you always want to perform. And being put on last, that the pressure is even bigger, and it just felt like if I didn't feel like I was up to the task, I would have been there. But it was exactly the same thing that it was 25 years ago. But yeah, it's exactly the same pressure, but there's two ways to cope with pressure. It's either you can't take it, or whatever you love it, and it becomes your best friend instead of your worst enemy. And that's the way I approach every event, or every pressure matters.
Very good. The next question also is going to come from the outside, from Under the Mat Radio. When you think of MSG, what is your favorite memory from MSG in the past?
My personal favorite memory is my feud with Bret Hart. So I think it was co-main eventing or main eventing. I can't remember exactly if I was before last or last match of the whole evening. But that was a pressure spot. That was like a priceless memory. Working with one of the best in the history of pro wrestling, having a feud with him and being able to perform in front of a live crowd at Madison Square Garden, which I think is the most famous, or the building where there's Elvis Presley performed at, Lady Gaga, Madonna, and so many comedians, artists, and performers. It's probably the building, that most prestigious, or the one that everybody really will mark on their calendar as being a special event, Madison Square Garden in New York. But this one
Right.
for me will top the Bret Hart one. This is the ROH, because this is the funniest and the best time that I've ever had, and the moments are the greatest moment of my career right now. This is the most over that I've ever been in the wrestling business, and going to MSG this time around is going to be right up on top of my list from them MSG events, right on top of over Bret and myself, and under Brett and myself, it was the tag belts against 123 Ken, Marty Jannetty.
All right, thank you. Next call, we're going to now get to all of our press friends that are on the line, have been waiting to talk to you. Sean Rossap from Fightful. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. Obviously, you are way more active than you were several years ago. Did you ever think you were going to make it back to Madison Square Garden? And at what point did you look at yourself and say, you know what, I can make this work full time again. I'm going to go for it.
Well, I think if I didn't think I was going to make it in a big time event, like a huge event like that, I don't think I would have come back for no other reason than that. And the reason is like somewhere last year, just after All In, during All In, I was at Starcast, and when I was doing the demo, like I'm going to do Friday on Caprice Coleman's pulpit. You know, we're going to be, me and Distro, we're going to be there Friday at 5 p.m. Doing like a big demo of strength and things like that. So we did that. We did something like that last year at All In during Starcast. And the end of and I remember I was with Baba on this show too right after that, or the following day. And Baba was asking me what was my goal, and I said like next year, like, you know, my goal is to be against Undertaker at WrestleMania. Well, I'm not against Undertaker at WrestleMania. People might have thought it was funny last year, but I'm going to meet one of the main event match at MSG as a ROH World Tag Team Champions with Brody King, part of Villain Enterprise, the biggest faction in pro wrestling today. And I think it answers your question right there, because you asked if I thought that I would be back at Madison Square Garden. My goal was to be at WrestleMania. Well, WrestleMania is every 10 years at the Garden. It's been like 60 years. You know, the McMahons are running the Garden, and it was never any other promotion. And being part of this one with Ring of Honor, Super G1, Supercard, all the superstars from Japan, like I got tremendous respect for Kota Ibushi, and all the others, and that's just the name that popped out of my mind. And yeah, of course, it's part of the journey. It's part of the goal. If not, I would have come back. I'm coming back. I was coming back because I wanted to impact the business, and that's what happened.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Next up is Jason Frazier from ESPN Radio St. Louis. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, PCO. Pleasure talking to you today.
Hey, Jason. What's up?
I just, you know, I go back every year and I watch, you know, history, a lot of the WrestleManias. I was watching WrestleMania 10, ironically, last night. And you went into that event as one half of the tag team champions back then as the Quebecers. You're going into this event again, 25, almost, you know, 20 plus years later. Same venue as one half of the tag team champions. 25 years, you know, half the tag team champions again. What is it like just looking at that kind of milestone for your career, but also comparing your tag partners, you know, the difference between each partner that you had, you know, with Brody King and Jack Joe?
Well, it's two different words. I mean, Jacques is an excellent worker as far as, you know, great heat seeker, great villain, great heel, and very athletic. I mean, he could like be good at every sports, but not as Brody King. I mean, as far as in the ring, all around work, Brody's fantastic. I mean, he can springboard to the second, straight to the top, cross body. He did some amazing stuff. He's powerful. He's strong. He can fly. He can brawl. He can do it all. You know, it's not a one-dimension guy. He's like he can do it all. And big, 6'6", 300 pounds, you know. So it doesn't come any better than that. So I gotta, and I don't want to take anything away from Jacques. Like, he's great, but he's more a one aspect guy. As compared to Brody King, is like multi, talented in different areas of the business. And he could be as good as well on the mic. But I gotta say, Jacques' strength was like mostly, not mostly, but one of his biggest strength was like, getting heat on the microphone too. Like on promos. It was really, really good. Like, you really wanted to hate him. That's huge. That's a big difference between the two.
All right, thanks,
Thank you
Jason.
so much for answering it.
Thank you.
Next, Bill Pritchard from Russell Zone. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, PCO. How are you?
Hey, Bill. I'm very good. Yourself?
Good. So I wanted to know, like, how will this event be different from you? And have you given any advice to Brody King about how to take in the experience of working MSG for the first time? Or on the other side, have you talked to Marty maybe about what his thoughts are going into a match on his own without you guys after working so closely together?
We're a very tight group. I mean, we've got a great chemistry. We always go for lunch together before or after shows or morning. We travel together, the three of us. We're literally always together, the three of us. But that's one thing that we discussed the MSG show, but I never give them any advice, or they never ask for any advice either. So I take for granted the fact that Marty has worked on several like major big crowd show, and Brody King's always performed like under pressure, like he did in Las Vegas for the tag titles when we won, and he's always, like, he's been with Battle of Los Angeles. He's done that. He's done a bunch of PWG shows with. There's a lot of pressure there, and you want to perform, and the fans are expecting a lot. And he's always been up to the task. And I think it's not something where you have to give so many advices, because it just comes easier when it's something like the Madison Square Garden, because this is the perfect length of time for a show. Let's say between 3 and 3.5 hours. Like from touring lately, around the United States, Texas, Florida, even like this Sunday in Baltimore, the fans are coming up to us, and they're so excited about the G1 Supercard, and they're going to be pumped. The fans are going to be so pumped, so crazy that all you have to do is just perform as usual and enjoy the moment. I mean, it doesn't come any easier than that, basically. The larger, the bigger is the moment, the easier it is. Well, the only thing that adds pressure is you want to be the best match of the evening. That's the only thing that adds pressure. It's just like Bubba said, everybody should want to try to steal the show, So that's the only pressure, but there's no advices for that, It's just part of the job.
All right. Thanks for your time.
No problem.
All right. Thank you. Next, Gil Kuda from Turnbuckle Talk. Just go ahead, Gil.
Hey, PCO. Thanks for taking the time, man.
No problem, Bill. Thanks.
I gotta ask, as long as you've been in the industry, and now there are, I don't want to say divides from one company to another, but now that you're in Ring of Honor with Villain Enterprises, as you said, the best faction in the world. But I have to ask, is the creative a little different, seeming that it's sort of booked towards, I guess, hardcore fans, so to speak?
If the creative is booking towards more hardcore fans, you're thinking?
I'm just curious. Is ROH as opposed to a more corporate fixture like a WWE? Is it more towards fans that can't get enough of guys like you and Villain Enterprises and the guys who are up at 3 a.m. watching your compadres in New Japan?
Well, the thing, I'm going to tell you something about creative. I mean, the big difference between the two companies is that I feel I don't want to take anything away from WWE. I'm just going to talk about the good things that ROH. I think they're great. As far as creative goes, they're working hand in hand with talent. Like, they wouldn't ask me to do something if I wouldn't feel like it's part of my character, because my character is already part of my identity, part of my personality. It's an extension of myself. So what you see of me in the ring, the French Canadian Frankenstein, not human. It's a larger part of PCO on a larger scale. It's bigger than life, but that's what I am on a smaller scale in life. That's how I live my life. So when you put me on stage and you put me in the Madison Square Garden, you put 20,000 people, well, I just become bigger and better than everything I do every day of my life, but it still is PCO. And I feel like ROH, they don't ask you to do things that you don't feel comfortable for. When I dealt with them, when I was negotiating for my contract, they said, we want you to be and to stay like you are, like you've been on the indie for the last 2 years. We just want to enhance that and make that look better. So right there, that was something that, I really liked, because it was really a partnership. It's not like something, now you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you have to do this, you have to be this guy. And I think that ROH, they understand that what the fans like, and if they think, okay, the fans are really popping up big for this guy, or for this talent, or for this idea, well, let's give them more of what they like. Let's not try to shove them something down their throat that they don't want to see, or they don't want to hear, or they don't like, and keep pushing this idea because, well, we think we're going to tell them how we should run the business. Well, they're working with the fans as well, and they're working with the talent as well. So I think this is pretty awesome from ROH. I mean, this is one of their strongest points. There's so many things that are strong about ROH, but I really like the fact the way that they're running the business right now.
All right, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. Next is James Walsh from Wrestling Epicenter. Go ahead, James.
Hey, PCO. Pleasure to talk to you. Big fan. How you doing today?
I'm great, James. Thanks.
All right. So I was a kid in the crowd at WrestleMania 10, and here we are 25 years later. It's kind of already been asked, but I'm going to ask it in a little bit of a different way. How is your headspace different now going into Madison Square Garden at this stage of your career with a company like Ring of Honor versus wrestling at WrestleMania? How is it different for you personally?
Between the WrestleMania 10 and this show right now? This week,
sir.
The Supercard. There's so many huge differences. First of all, as a person, I'm a person that, in order to get my career going the way it is going right now, and to have this huge, fans, the fans that are behind it, and in order to get what I got from the fans, and to be as popular as I became, in all humility, in all humbleness, I had to really work on myself. So I had to become a different person, and so of course, I think I was really young the first time around, 25 years old. There's a lot of things happening quick. You go from the Indies to the WWE, and the fame and the fortune, and making more money, and getting recognized by everybody on the street or everywhere you go, and the airports and things like that. it was like kind of the personality that I had, the person that I was really humble and was really like grateful for everything that was happening in my life. I kind of felt at one point in my career at a younger age that I was becoming better than most of the people in general. I kind of lost that humility and started to believe in my own publicity or what was happening in my life. Started to take it like, okay, I'm a big superstar now. I'm like, which is now everything that I went through and worked on myself as, probably don't blame the whole world for everything that doesn't go right, and take full responsibilities for everything that happened to you in your life. So with that type of mentality now, going into the MSG Supercard, the G1, it's a total different point of view, the perception for me. I feel 100% that I deserve to be in that card, and I worked hard and disciplined myself and paid a lot of dues in order to be able to be on that card. But the difference is, I'm really grateful, and I'm going to be there with so much humility, very humble, and very happy to be part of it and enjoy every moment of it. And not looking for, okay, what's going to be next now? Okay, I've done this. What's going to be next? Without appreciating what I'm going through at the moment. Of course, I always want more. I want to do better. I want to do bigger arenas and bigger stadiums, and do everything more. But I want to appreciate this moment at the just value as it is. This is the difference. This is the total different sets of mindset's totally different for this one than it was. That's why this is my most fun and important one. I hope I did understand. I hope I did explain to you well enough so you can understand what I meant.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time today, sir, and congratulations on the opportunity and for reinventing yourself. Looking forward to Saturday night.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Jeff Martin from bodyslam.net. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, PCO. Finally, a pleasure to get a chance to ask you a question here. So you talk about reinventing yourself. We spoke to Bully Ray about him reinventing himself with the Bully Ray character. How important do you think it is, or what advice would you give wrestlers who right now who maybe feel they're kind of stale or not relating with the fans? You've obviously reinvented yourself. So what advice would you give a younger wrestler that would seek out your advice about how to maybe possibly relate better with the fans?
Well, I mean, this is just something where you got to keep believing in yourself. That's the main thing. You really don't know when it's going to hit and when it's going to get to the fans. And I always come up with this example. I remember when Stone Cold Steve Austin started as the ringmaster for WWE. I mean, there was no reaction whatsoever. Everybody knew that Steve had been a great talent for WCW as a tag team champions and that he had like great matches before. But he got let go from WCW, and then he went to ECW, which he did okay. And then I think it was cut out of someone who was talking to Vince into hey, this guy's a good worker. You should hire him. And they hired him as a mechanical, someone that can help enhance other guys and was a good worker, but didn't put any thoughts behind it, nothing special to this guy. So ringmaster, I think they gave him the belt with the DiBiase belt or something like that. But it's the same thing that I did, and probably Steve. It's like you have to keep your vision about yourself and knowing what you want and keep focus on the goal. And no matter what happened, no matter how many times you might fail, you might try something, the fans might reject it, it might not work. If you stay focused and if you really believe in yourself and you really keep your eyes on that vision all the time, eventually the right thing's going to pop up for you. But it's all about fate. But sometimes people, they don't know what fate is. Fate is persistence. Fate is perseverance. That's what is fate. I mean, it's not just opening in your bed, okay, I got the fate, I got the fate. No, it's going through like a bunch of failures, a bunch of tough times, and eventually knowing that it's going to pay off. And that's the best advice I can give to any wrestlers. If it's really your passion, if you're really passionate about it, you really love what you do, it doesn't matter how many times you're going to fail. Eventually, you're going to find out what works for you.
Thank you so much. Best of luck on Saturday.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Next, Jim Barcelone from MiamiHerald.com. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, PCO. Just curious, why do you think it's worked for you getting over so much with fans? Is it a combination of the moves that you're doing at the age that you are? Is it just how you present yourself, the ring gear, a little bit of the face paint? Just when you look at it, why do you think it's been such a success reinventing yourself this way and resonating with fans?
I think it's a fruit salad of all of this. It's a good mix of everything. A little bit of grapes, a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of orange. I think you hit it on the nail, though. I mean, the character got over the Frankenstein character. That's a movie that's been around since 1931 that everybody knows. I don't know how many wrestlers that I've seen with a Frankenstein head tattooed on their body, 5 or 6 in the last 2 years. So it's been really like something that's been really in the mind and conscious mind of the every person almost. You know, everybody I've heard or been touched or whatever, heard stories or have watched some of the movies, the Frankenstein movies. So I think that's being a strong character and being able to portray that, because it's part of my personality, where I can do crazy things without, getting like seriously injured. I think the fans really dig that because it works with the not being human. I've done a few crazy things before, but as just a human guy, sometimes it didn't make sense. But now, even though if it doesn't seem to make sense, like for example, I took a huge backdrop from the ram into the side of the apron on my back where my body bends the other way around. And Jim Ross posted something like, why? And he had like, I don't know how many answers, like people were posting because PCO's not human, he's not human, he's not human, he's not human. So that makes sense too. So doing like crazy stuff, and I don't know why, but the people really digging that. And also, it's not like I can only do big stuff like that, dangerous, but I can also work. I can also, do a bunch of things. I can hit a super leg drop off the top rope, frog splash, moonsaults, and all kinds of stuff like that. Dive on the outside can be pretty exciting as well. And I think with the people getting behind the whole thing, it's adding. It goes, in a full circle, like in a vicious circle. The people start to like you. You start to be more charismatic. You're more charismatic. You get more people getting to like you. So it's a very positive, vicious circle. So I think all the ingredients are there. Just like you said, it's a bit of everything. Maybe the makeup. Maybe it brings back. The memories of Demolition or the Road Warriors somewhere, just a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it just touched the unconscious mind of people at a different place. And I think it's, like I said, I've failed so many times trying to come up with a character that was an extension of myself and that would work and that would really get the people to like me. And also, you have to take that in consideration. Failing so many times and always keeping that vision about success in yourself and knowing that you've got everything to make it big even though nobody believes in you anymore and you still believe in yourself, eventually when it pays off, it's like every failures are adding up on top of each other. And when you get success, it's like all those failures turns into a positive that gives you the amount of success that comes with it. So it's a bunch of things together. That's why it's happening like that. That's the way I can explain it to you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, thanks, Jim. Next, Mike Johnson, PW Insider. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, PCO, how are you, sir?
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
Good to talk to you again. You talked a lot about recreating yourself and finding yourself again and being back in this moment. There's been discussion of like what advice you would give to the younger talents about the Garden and things like that. What advice would you give to some of the older talents who wrestled in your era, or maybe in the decade that followed, that have kind of fallen off the pulse and finding their way back to the mainstream the way you have? Like, obviously, your path can't be 100% recreated. Everyone's got a unique personality, and yours works for what you do. But what advice would you give to some of the veterans out there who can still go but aren't getting the attention that you've been lucky enough to get in the last 2 years?
Oh, that's a very good question. I know it's never been asked around like that. It's always what advice can you give to the younger kids? And now you're asking me what advice I can give to the older guys that are like felt like they missed the boat at one point, but they're talented and they can still go, but nobody's like hiring them. Basically, that's your question, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends. The thing, if it depends on their vision, it depends on their goal, it depends if they still believe in themselves. That I'm not on the inside, on the mind of anyone else. I can talk for myself, and that's going to help others too by just telling my story. And also, the very important thing that you said at the end of your question is if they are still able to go. And that's the thing. Like, most of the guys are getting older. Sometimes they have a replacement, a hip replacement, a knee replacement, and sometimes they're pretty messed up, so they can't go no more. And that was the most important thing for me in order to come back. I knew I had to be better than the 30 and the 35 years old and the 20 years old, or as good as they are. And there was no consideration about coming back if I couldn't perform the way the young kids are performing. I wanted to go head to head with them. That's why I was, and I'm still training with hockey players that are playing junior major hockey league. They're 19 or 20 years old, or any NHL players. That's why I'm training with those guys, because that's the level I need to be at in order to perform. So the thing for the older guys, as it is for the younger guys, are you willing to pay the price? Because there's a price to be paid. You can't just receive. You have to give before you receive. So you have to give a lot. Give a lot of your time, give a lot of your, I don't know how many hours I spent on the trampoline park in the last 2 years for my moonsault. If I didn't do like 2,000 moonsaults, I didn't do one. I was like there like every day for, when I wasn't on the road, I would go with a private coach. I would spend money on a private coach. I would have someone by me and teaching me and telling me how to do it. I would do it like standing up in the trampoline. So I paid a lot of prices, meaning by my efforts and my time. So that's one of the things, are you willing to pay the price? The second thing is what kind of vision you got about what you want to become, what's your goal? If you have taken your eyes off the goal for several years, it's going to take more time to be able to come back and achieve it. So there's a bunch of things like that. But the main message is, if you always believe in yourself and you never stop to believe in yourself, well, it will happen. Just keep on. You gotta. so many factors, discipline, paying the price, doing all the efforts, everything 24/7. You have to be thinking about wrestling, pro wrestling, pro wrestling, pro wrestling. You can't, what makes it harder also for older guys, they have 3 kids, they have a house, they have responsibilities, they have a job. They're not, I was willing to quit any job that I would have. I was willing to take a second mortgage on my house in order to have enough money to just wrestle. Well, those are the risks. Well, and I'm going to answer that by one question. By one question, that's going to give you your answer. It's like, that's my mentality. What would I do if I have all the gold in the world? I'd be a pro wrestler. So I decided to be a pro wrestler all my life in order to have all the gold in the world. Meaning, whatever, belts, money, whatever gold means for you. That's my answer, basically.
All right. Thank you so much, and enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Talk to you soon, sir.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mike. Thank you. We're going to take a couple more. Nick Hausman from Wrestling Inc. Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, PCO. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
All right, Nick. Thanks, man.
Now, my question was if you win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles with Brody King, how excited are you to potentially go over to Japan and defend those titles and expose the Japanese fans to the PCO character?
I'd be super excited. I'd be super, super excited. I mean, I think the Japanese fans would go crazy over that character, and it would be pretty insane. So I'm super pumped for G1 Supercard, Madison Square Garden, ROH, New Japan Pro Wrestling. I've been to Japan before for All Japan. 2001, I'm working the greats of like Kobashi, Jun Akiyama, Taiwei, Kawada, Misawa. Worked with all those guys. So now this new generation, and also now like the Japanese talent and the American talents are more working together than ever. When I was there, I mean, I could barely talk to my opponent. Like I was not even able to talk to Misawa or Kawada, even shake my hands. So now it's more like, okay, it's a get together more, and it's easier to approach those superstars from Japan. So it'd be an honor for me to go to Japan and defend the IWGP titles. And I know it's a dream for Brody King too. So be awesome to win that.
Cool. Thank you very much, PCO.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Last question. Stu Myrick from 104.9 in Austin. Go ahead, Stu.
PCO, always a pleasure to talk to you. So we've heard a lot about what you've taught some of the younger guys and veterans. What have you learned from being around the likes of a Brody King and a Marty Scurll that has enhanced your career?
This is a very good question. And it's fun too, because we were traveling Sunday and we went to eat together, Brody and Marty and myself. And the guys sometimes they're asking me questions. Hey, PCO, have you worked with Undertaker? Yeah, I worked. And I think I main event on a dark match at a TV taping in Poughkeepsie, New York, and it's on constant video. And the PCO, have you worked? Let's say, they asked me about my feud with Brad, if I worked Sean, and names that when they grew up, they were like really high on those guys. And then I tell them, and then they go and they switch it around. It's funny sometimes when you have conversations with guys, how they don't realize where you've been. And I told them, well, guys, it's not the same anymore. The business has changed so much that I can learn from you guys more than they can learn from me. Not talking about Brody and Marty themselves, because we're so close, the three of us together, that we understand each other when I'm talking or when they're talking. But I told them, I learn more from the guys because the business has changed. So they, just I learned mostly by watching them and by hearing what impresses them during a match. Like if they're talking about a match that they like or a particular talent that they like, I'm trying to find what's that thing that drives them into liking this guy or liking that sequence or this match or whatever they might like of. So that's how I'm trying to pick on their brain. And most of the times, if I'd be doing like some signings with Brody King as the tag team champion, I would ask him like, "Do you have any ideas for tonight?" Just by curiosity, see what's on his mind, and it's really cool. But like you said, I probably learn more from them than they learn from me. But it's not by question. It's not like asking question and they give me an answer. It's by being really, really focused on what they do and why they're doing things and trying to understand their thinking. That's how I'm analyzing them, but they don't really know that. But that's the way I am. And then I think, just to go a little bit further in your question, it's like I think in order to get success, also as you progress in this business or you get older and you're working with guys younger, you have to adapt to changes because the business has changed so much that if you cannot adapt to changes, you cannot follow the rhythm. So that's basically the best that I can answer your question. It's by analyzing them. Yeah.
Sounds good, Pierre. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, PCO. We appreciate you taking the time. That's all the time we have for our media call. G1 Supercard airs live from sold out Madison Square Garden in New York City this Saturday, April 6th at 7:30 Eastern through traditional pay-per-view providers and free-for-all Honor Club members. ROH and New Japan will also present G1 Supercard Festival of Honor this Friday, April 5th at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. The event will feature a full day of on-stage entertainment, talent meet and greets, the official G1 Supercard press conference at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and much more. For more information on Ring of Honor, G1 Supercard, and Festival of Honor, please visit ROHWrestling.com or open the ROH app. Thanks again for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you this weekend in New York City, and I look forward to meeting many of you for the first time. Enjoy the rest of your day.